the Service Autopilot Facebook user group of the difference between man hours or crew hours in budgeted man hours on the job itself. So what I want to do is dive into Service Autopilot and actually break this down a little bit. And the reason why Service Autopilot displays these numbers differently as you're looking at it, in my opinion, makes logical sense if you're looking at all the crazy things that can happen in a lawn care, home cleaning, or pest control business on a day-to-day scheduling. So I'm going to grab my other screen here and pop this up here. But the idea here is that as we're looking at this, there is a bit of a discrepancy. So when we're going in and putting in a weekly reoccurring job, whether it's lawn mowing, home cleaning, pest control, the question was around this area here. So as you look at upcoming lawn mowing here is $55 and it is budgeted. There's two different jobs here, but we have one budgeted for 2 hours and 1 hour. And then why is the different area here under this area based on the total budget or the actual crew hours? So this is the budgeted hours and these are the crew hours. Well, there's two distinct reasons why. So what you're going to do is put in the budgeted hours here on this job for 2 hours. And why is it only showing one here? Well, we're budgeting this as if there's only one person. So always when we're using Service Autopilot, we want to put the budgeted time for a job. We want to assume there's only one person on the crew. Now, obviously, it's going to let you know what the defined crew size is, but the system is built in a way, at least in my interpretation, would be is it's built in a way for the fluctuations of a service business with our labor. So whether we've got a lot of work backed up with a rain day, or maybe in the home cleaning industry, we're doing a top to bottom deluxe and we need 2 or 3 solo crews coming in to knock out that cleaning job because it's a large one. It's going to give you that flexibility. So your history is the actual man hours total for the crew. The upcoming is the total man hours if there was only one person. And if it was a 2-person crew, you take that 2 hours and divide it down by 2. So when you go in and look at this, if you're on the dispatch board, this is where it kind of makes sense. So in the closeout day screen, I've got my start and stop times. And we're looking at it in the budgeted time. But if I went out to the dispatch board or even on the closeout day screen, but assuming it would be on the dispatch board, what happens if we have an employee don't show up? Or like I said, maybe we're backed up with rain, or maybe we have a top to bottom deluxe in the cleaning industry. We've got 3 solos going on to 1 crew for that day. The cool part about Service Autopilot, at least in my opinion, is that it gave us huge flexibility in my service business in the lawn care industry. We can go into the More tab and hit Assign Teams. And what this does, it pulls in the default crew settings. So if we are under Teams, this is where we set up our crews. And we'd go in and add a team, and there's some certain things you'd want. So you'd obviously have to name, team code, tags. We set the color up. We want the starting address. This is where Maps Pro and the optimizations optimize off. But if I go into team assignments and add the assignments here, that is going to be the resources automatically defaulted. So if we had a 3-person mowing crew, Christine, myself, and Chad were on this mowing crew, well, what happens if Chad wasn't able to make it into work today? So we could take Chad off and then manipulate this crew down to a 2-person crew. So when you schedule a job, it doesn't know how many people are going to be on that crew. Now it knows default we had 3, but if Chad can't make it, maybe that's an issue. Or what if Chad is on here as default, but we needed to take this other person over here as a 4th person for maybe the first time we did the job to help get it into shape before we actually maintained it, whether it's lawn care, home cleaning. So what it's going to do is take those total budgeted hours on the job and divide by the actual crew members that are actually on the job for the day. So the question is, why does that job come out that way? And what's the difference between the crew hours and the budgeted man hours? And if I go in and grab this job again here, I'll show you what that looks like again really quickly. So whether in V2 or V3, we have all the new upcoming jobs, but we want to be able to see what that is as far as the total hours. And then based on the crew size, it's going to optimize that. So that is what we're looking at here. Those budgeted hours, those 2 budgeted hours are 2 man hours for the job. So I don't care if you have 4 people or 2 people. 2 people, once they're assigned, would knock that down to 1. Or if you had 4, that would drop that down 2 hours divided by 4. So obviously, it would be about 30 minutes. But the idea is it gives you the ability to add or contract on those crews, and we know what the budgeted total man hours are for the job in particular based on the size of the crew. So that's one of the biggest things when we look into Service Autopilot and set up our services under the gear icon, that most people, when we work with them in Service Autopilot, have a lot of questions around. They're like, well, Mike, I'm running a 2-man crew or a 3-man crew. Like, well, unfortunately, that really doesn't matter, because what we're looking at here when we go in and add a service is we want to set the service mode probably to per unit. And when we go to the rate matrix, we're going to go to quantity rate times visits, and we're going to base it on a custom field of like lawn mowing square footage. And we may say from 1 to 5,000 square feet, I'm charging $45 to cut it, mow, blow, and edge. Now the budgeted hours is where the biggest question comes in. Now, if you're charging $45 per man hour, and you've budgeted, and you're just going to say it's going to take 1 hour, so $45, that's 1 hour. And then the cost is your break even. But that 1 hour now, if it's a 2-person crew, gets sucked down to 1 half hour, or basically 0.5 budgeted man hour. So when you're building your services out, it doesn't matter depending on the size of the crew, because your crew's size may shift throughout the year or year to year. So the system is going to allow you to set up the service so it's evergreen. It lasts the same forever until you change your price or the production. And then as you evolve with different crews, the system does the math for you behind the scenes. So it's really a streamlined process, and I think it's a great way that SA has this set up. So the question was, what's the difference between the budgeted man hours and the crew man hours on the actual job tab itself? The budgeted man hours is based on what you've budgeted here. The crew man hours are the historical times it actually took that crew. So if it was a half hour for 2 people to do it, it would be 1 actual crew hour to produce that labor. So comments or questions, drop them below. But Callahan's Corner, you ask the questions, we answer them live right here on Facebook.